We are live. Hey there, how are you doing? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, October 18th. And the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour answering questions and topics of discussion that you have related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, or any specific challenges you may be going through when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, and getting in your best shape. So as you're popping on to our live stream here, feel free to introduce yourself and type in any questions or topics that you would like for me to cover during our video chat. And hopefully this is coming through loud and clear on your end. Seems to be coming through loud and clear on my end. We are streaming from the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. So wherever you happen to be tuning in from, hopefully it is coming through loud and clear. So we have AJ is joining in. Welcome. We have Lee joining in. Says loud and clear. Appreciate it. We have more goofy, please. Loud or clearly loud. Rob is joining in. Welcome, Rob. I'm glad to have you joining us. Excellent. Thank you, folks. So as you're popping on to our live stream, again, let me know what topics you would like to discuss today with regards to fitness and nutrition, or if there's any specific goals that you're working on, feel free to share that as well. You know, because right now we're entering in an interesting time because Halloween, Thanksgiving, the Christmas holiday season is just around the corner. And it's kind of a weird scenario because we just came from, summer. And I know a lot of people, they sometimes get slack over the summer. Like I'm talking about like most folks as I've been talking to, like, oh, I kind of let the workout slide. I haven't been really going to the gym as consistently. And anybody who's a regular at the gym knows that during the summer months, the gym dies down. It's a great time to work out because very often the crowds are not there. You got a lot of the gym to yourself a lot of times, or very few people there. So there's no waiting on machines. In the fall, when school starts and all that hustle and bustle, things start to pick up again, get busy. And then right before the holidays, like right around where we are now, then moving into that phase, a lot of people are going to say, oh, I'm busy. It's not the right time, yada, yada, yada. I'll wait till next year. And then the whole January New Year's rush comes in. And one of the keys that's going to make the difference in terms of making progress and actually seeing the results you want and achieving your fitness goals is, can you be consistent through all those situations? Can you be good enough and good enough consistently through those times? Not having this on and off, all in or screw it, not doing anything at all. Can you be good enough and good enough consistently? And those who can are going to see amazing progress. Those who can't are going to be constantly spinning their wheels. They're going to be chasing the same goals over and over and over again. And it's amazing when I'm chatting to people, like a lot of folks, they're still chasing the same goals they were last year, right? They're still, still trying to lose that gut, still trying to get back in shape, still trying to do whatever it was they were trying to do 2 or 3 years ago. They're probably still trying to do that now. Like, you need to be good enough and good enough consistently. And that's where that whole phrase comes from. I mean, you probably hear me say it a lot in my videos and in my coaching calls and podcasts, but it's absolutely true. Like, that is the one thing that's going to make or break your success, to be consistently good versus occasionally great. So we can certainly elaborate on that more, but I'm just curious now, like moving into the winter, the fall, the winter and stuff like that. Like, what are some of the goals that you have for yourself and that you'd like to focus on achieving? So feel free to share that in the video chat as well. So who else we have joining in? Let's see. We have CL Sports, Chad from South Florida. Welcome, Chad. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you didn't get too much damage down in Florida from all the storms and the hurricanes. I know that's been all over the news. It's certainly a lot of devastation happened down there. So glad to have you joining in, and hopefully things are going well for you. We have Jeff from North Carolina. Welcome, Jeff. And we have Sam joining in from Ireland. So just finished a push workout Friday night at the right kind of bar. How's your training going? Awesome. Love it. Right? The Friday night pump up. I remember back in the day, this was a common theme, and I'm sure it's not just in our local area, but it was a common thing back in my early days, throughout my 20s and that, I remember a lot of guys used to go in for Friday night pump up at the gym, right? So it was usually chest and arms, Friday night pump up, and then it would be hitting the pubs afterwards. That was so people hitting two kinds of bars on a Friday night, but hopefully you're only hitting the one kind, right? The steel kind, not the adult beverage kind. All right, but awesome to have you joining in. Who else do we have there? Axel joining in, saying, is training to build muscle 4 times per week and training in martial arts 4 times a week too much? Will I overtrain? Currently doing 4 training days per week, 2 times per day. All right, that's an interesting question. Sure, we'll just dive right into it. It depends. Because it depends on how intense and how hard you're pushing yourself with those workouts. And it also depends on your current fitness level. Because what is considered overtraining for one person may be undertraining for another, and vice versa, or anywhere in between. You can't just paint everybody with the same brush and say, 4 workouts a week is overtraining, or you can't combine this and that. It depends. It depends on the individual. And if you look at elite level athletes, like if you're looking at professional martial artists or UFC fighters or people like that, they're doing a lot of volume. They're doing a lot of training. Now, granted, that is their life. They're basically dedicated their life to that. And everything is kind of geared and optimized towards nutrition and recovery and training for their sport. But they can handle incredible workloads. So you have to factor in a much bigger perspective, like not only your training, but what are you doing outside of that? Like, what are you doing as far as your career and your family and outside responsibilities that you have outside of the gym and outside of the dojo that you have to factor in as well? That all plays a role and can certainly drain your energy and your recovery. There's so much. It's not just a cookie cutter answer. But what I would suggest, first off, look at what is your number one priority. Is it the weight training or is it the martial arts? Right? And I know you probably say, well, it's both. I want to be great at everything. I mean, I can appreciate that, but like seriously, are you doing weight training to kind of supplement your martial arts training so that you got maximum strength and power for your martial arts? Or is weight training your main goal and you're doing martial arts because it's like a cool little thing to do on the side? Like, what's the number one goal? And once you decide what the number one priority is, I would kind of stack the deck in favor of that. And if you have to scale back, then scale back in the other area. And I'll give you a prime example in my situation. Like during the summertime, especially, I do a lot of cycling. I compete in local cycling races. And I mean, that is my top priority fitness wise during the summer months. It has been over the last couple of years now, and I really enjoy it. And in fact, I have a race coming up tomorrow, another one. So my main training priority has been cycling. Now I'm still doing weight training, but it's not as intense or as frequent as when I'm prioritizing cycling, because cycling takes the top priority. So I'm going to dedicate most of my strength, energy, and recovery towards that. But I'm still going to keep the weight training in there to balance out the training, to prevent injuries, and to help aid with the cycling workouts, right? So the weight training is serving as a supplement now to the cycling. Whereas once the racing season is over now and I'm getting more into the fall and winter months, and of course when it's not suitable to be out cycling as much weather-wise, I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to prioritize more weight training, and it'll kind of tip the scale in the opposite. So weight training will be my main focus, supplemented with, indoor cycling. I do some cycling outside, like fat biking in the snow and stuff, but that's not nearly as high a volume or as high a frequency as I do in the summertime with road cycling and gravel cycling. But I'll still do it, but it's not the priority. The weight training becomes the top priority then, and this cycling and the endurance training is kind of supplementing that. So you can cycle between it. Not pardon the pun. You can alternate between it depending on what it is that you want to focus on, because you can't really focus on everything. Like the old phrase, if you try and chase 2 rabbits, you'll catch none, right? You have to prioritize. But with your training, you can still incorporate other forms of training to complement the main priority. but it has to be done in that order. So in your situation, I'd look at what's the number one goal, what's the number one priority, focus on that. And then if you need to scale back because you feel like you're overtraining, you're burning out, or you just don't have the time in your schedule to complete, 4 weight training workouts plus 4 martial arts sessions, if you had to scale back somewhere, then I would scale back in the one that is the lower priority. That's the way I would go about it. Right. But that's really an individual thing. Like, it's something that you're going to have to experiment with trial and error, and see what works for you. Right. And if needed, like, you could even scale back the intensity as well. That's another variable. Like, it just doesn't have to be the frequency of the workouts. It could be the volume and the intensity of them as well. So maybe you could still do 4 workouts, but they're going to be 4 easier workouts, or 4 lower volume workouts, or 4 shorter workouts, however you want to phrase it. But you don't have to go, drain the tank every single time you go to the gym, right? You can go in there and do some active recovery work and mobility work and things like that. That's going to help aid with your training and your recovery. And this is how I go about structuring my workouts as well. Like, I prioritize the number one fitness goal, and then the other exercises are there to complement it. So hopefully it gives you some food for thought. But again, the ultimate answer is going to come down to you and your specific situation through a bit of trial and error and practical application. All right, let's see who else. Rob has a question. How long do you give a workout schedule a chance? I gave total body 4 weeks and hated it. Went back to upper, lower, just didn't feel it, and plateau according to measuring machine. I'm not sure what measuring machine we're using here, but how long do you give a workout a chance? I generally recommend sticking something out for at least 6 weeks to give it an honest effort before you decide if it's, it's because you need to give your body a chance to respond. Like, every program you follow, regardless of what it is, whether it's a total body, upper, lower, push, pull, legs, bro split, or any combination of whatever, you're going to go through the phases of adapt, meaning, like, when you try something new, provide unique muscle stimulation, your body has to adapt to that new muscle stimulation. Then in response to the adaptation, it's going to grow. You're going to see some progress, some changes. And then eventually it's going to hit a plateau. Like, every program goes through adapt, grow, plateau. Every program that you go through. And you need to give it time to kind of go through that in order to give it an honest chance. Because, like, if you just follow a program for a week or so, like, oh, that didn't work. Well, you didn't give your body a chance to adapt and actually see the changes happening. And I see this a lot, like, when it comes to diets, especially. People say, oh, I tried that diet and exercise for a week and I didn't lose any weight, so I quit. Like, what were you expecting? Is there's a lag time from the effort you put in to the actual results you're going to see. It's not like, hey, I put in a day's work and I see a day's results, right? Like, it's not like your job. Okay, I put in a day's work, give me my day's money, right? You might have to put in weeks of work before you actually start to see the fruits of your labor, right? It's more along the lines of planting a garden than it is something that's instantaneous. Like, think of planting a garden. You plant the seed. Well, first of all, you prepare the soil, you plant the seeds, you tend to it, you make sure it's getting enough water and sunlight, and you fertilize it and nourish it and all that stuff. You tend that garden, and it might be there for weeks or months before you get anything from that garden. Like, especially before you harvest, right? It could be in the ground for months. So it's not like, hey, it's not Jack and the Beanstalk where, hey, I put the magic beans in the ground and tomorrow we got this massive beanstalk to the sky. Like, it doesn't happen that quick. So you have to give stuff time to go through that process of adapt and grow and have the actual changes take place. So I usually recommend at least 6 weeks or minimum, right? But with that being said, if you absolutely hate a particular program for whatever reason, I mean, like, everybody's got their reasons, but if after 6 weeks and you're like, man, I just don't like this for whatever reason, it doesn't fit me, my schedule, I just don't like it. Hey, fine, do something else, right? Do something that you enjoy. And enjoyment is a big factor as well. Like, if we're looking at real world progress, if you don't enjoy what it is you're doing, how likely are you going to stick to it over the long term? Probably not. Like, if you absolutely hate a particular training program or a particular activity, and you got to force yourself to do it. And it's just like, I don't like this. I don't want to do it. I'm blah, 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 blah. You're not going to do it. Simple as that. So enjoyment has to be a big thing. And you have to find out what it is you enjoy. And sometimes it could be the variables. Like maybe you could change it up. Like maybe some people say, well, I don't like working out. And I say, okay, well, where are you working out to? And maybe it's the gym. Maybe it's the atmosphere. Maybe if they had a friend to work out with, that would make it more enjoyable. Or if they trained at a different gym that had a different atmosphere, to be more enjoyable. You know, you can change some of the variables to make it more enjoyable, but enjoyment is a big factor there as well. Right. So as far as the schedule, though, in your situation there, if you don't like total body and you prefer upper lower, do it. I mean, the variables there are very that is such a small thing in the greater scheme of things, because as long as you're providing the muscle with unique stimulation and you're giving it adequate time to rest, recover, and grow, and then you're nourishing the body on the cellular level, like you can make gains with virtually any program, right? Like, and that's one of the things, like people always argue and debate, like, oh, is this program better than that program? Or is this routine better than that? Or this schedule better than that? Or this set and rep pattern better? If you go around and look at the greater scheme of like all the athletes and people who work out, you'll see people doing virtually every single program. And at some level, people are making gains with virtually every single program. Like I can show you guys who are making gains doing total body. I can show you guys who are making gains doing bro splits. We're doing push-pull legs. We're doing upper lower. We're doing CrossFit. We're doing powerlifting or Olympic lifting or strongman training or anything in between. Like you can find people who are making gains in all these different styles of training. And it's not the style of training that's making it or breaking it. It's the fact that they're consistent and that they're training in a progressive overload fashion with whatever that happens to be. And they're good enough consistently. Like it's all the other elements. It's not just the split or the schedule. So, you know, you can change it up if you really don't like it and you're not going to stick with it. So, I mean, hopefully that helps. But bottom line, find something you enjoy and then ride it out, stick it out. And this is one thing I got to say, over the years, I've done a lot of different styles of training. Like I have done bodybuilding, typical bodybuilding workouts. I've done powerlifting. I've done different endurance and conditioning style workouts, stuff that, and some workouts that kind of resemble CrossFit. Now, I've never been a member of an actual CrossFit gym, but I've done similar styles of workouts on my own. I've done martial arts. I mean, in recent years now, I've really gotten into endurance training and cycling and training for that, which that's a whole different can of worms as well. But there's a lot of nuances. It's not just putting in the time on the clock. Like a lot of bodybuilders look at doing cardio. It's just like, oh, you know, punching in the time. Like as long as you get an hour of cardio done, you're good. But you know, you can vary the intensities and the work zones and the heart rate zones. I mean, there's a lot to it, right? I mean, it's not as simple as a lot of people make it out to be. You can make it as advanced or as complex as you want it to be. But that's something I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed the different styles of training and how they complement and how each one has different impacts on the body. And I find that each time I try different modalities, it really spurs on new fun and enthusiasm, because it's like, even though I'm exercising, it's not the same thing over and over again. It's a totally different style of training, totally different experience, and it keeps it fun and fresh. All right, who else we got there? Let's see. We have Jason is joining us. Welcome. We've got Robert joining in. Good afternoon to you, my friend. Rob from North Carolina. Nice to see others. Good stuff. Glad to have you joining us. Okay, who else we got there? Philippe is joining in from Chicago. Welcome. Glad to have you joining. We have Jason. Welcome to this chat. Who else we got there? Lee joining in with a question. It says, I've been on TRT through my doctor for a few months. I've really nailed down my nutrition since being on TRT. I'm now seeing the benefits. I feel so much healthier and happier. Life is good. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I want to just touch on the topic of this, because we recently did a podcast where I was featuring how to bust. The topic of the podcast was how to bust through plateaus in fat loss, plateaus specifically. And one of the guys who joined into the podcast was Mike Brown. And Mike has made incredible progress. And I featured him, used his example within the podcast. And Mike is using TRT through his doctor. And a lot of people assume that TRT is the magic bullet. Like, as soon as they see results, they say, oh, that's because you're on that TRT. And then we even had some comments where people were mentioning that, well, I tried TRT and I'm a TRT non-responder because I didn't turn into I didn't get ripped and muscular when I started taking TRT. And like hormone replacement therapy or testosterone replacement therapy, it's designed to put you into a normal, healthy range. It's not the same as what you'll see professional athletes using/abusing, however you want to word it. And it's not designed with that in mind. The progress somebody makes because they're using hormone replacement therapy isn't necessarily from the hormone replacement therapy. It's because that is no longer a limiting factor. They're now in a healthy hormone range. And then the work they put into their diet and their training and their healthy lifestyle choices and all that can now reap the full benefits of it because they don't have that limiting factor. If you have low hormone levels, like low testosterone or low growth hormone or low thyroid or low whatever, like if you have some hormonal imbalances that are causing underlying issues, then you're not going to reap the full benefits and your body's not going to respond the same to the effort you put into your diet and exercise and all that. So once you correct those underlying issues, now your body can respond properly to those other external variables, the diet, the exercise, and you'll start to reap the results that you should be getting. You'll kind of get the results from your efforts. And it's amazing the number of people who've come to me over the years for help, like gone through the Muscle After 40 program and stuff. And they're like, well, I've been using hormone replacement therapy for the past year, but I'm still fat and out of shape. Like, what's wrong? And I'm like, hormones do not cancel out poor diet and lifestyle choices and poor exercise choices. Like, you still have to put in the work. It's not like this is a magic bullet. And to really put things in perspective, think of teenagers and people in their early 20s. Like in your teenage years, late teens, early 20s, that's when your natural hormones are at their optimal. Like they'll never be as naturally high at that level ever. So, late teens, early 20s, your testosterone is optimized, your growth hormone is optimized. Like everything is functioning at its peak at that stage. Do you know of any teenagers or people in their 20s who are overweight and out of shape? I'm sure you do. Like it's more than ever, right? It's very common to see. Well, it's not, you can't blame it on the hormones. It must be diet and lifestyle and other factors coming into play, right? So it's not the magic bullet, right? And I'm going to really elaborate on it. Probably even do a podcast with some of the guys who've to share some real world examples on this. But I just wanted to touch on it here because that is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. A lot of times when people see someone who's in really good shape, they automatically say, oh, well, that's because they're on that TRT. But then when they go on it, or if other people go on it, then they have this, well, like, okay, I'm taking the hormone replacement therapy. Where are the muscles? Like it's not an instant, magic formula. It's not like a comic book, right? Where okay, the Incredible Hulk takes his concoction and turns green and, becomes this jacked up superhero. Or Captain America, right? What was it in the comics, right? He gets into the machine and the next thing you know, he comes out huge and strong and jacked. And like, no, it's not a magic formula like that. Like it just prevents you from having hormones being a limiting factor. Right? But again, I would like to elaborate on that and probably in a future podcast because it's a very misunderstood topic for sure. Dave is talking about, he says, I can't thank you enough for doing the latest podcast. I've been stuck at a plateau for quite a while now. I've lost 6 pounds. Way to go, my friend. Good for you. Congrats. That's solid progress. And I'm glad you enjoyed the podcast. And just to let you know, guys, if there's any specific topics that you would like to see covered in future episodes of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast, please let me know. Right? I know I do some Q&A here, but if there's a topic that you would like to really do a deep dive in, like the one I mentioned before, I want to do a deep dive into the truth about hormone replacement therapy and share some real world examples from people who've gone through that and share the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, because it's not smooth sailing. Like, that's once you go into that, there's a whole can of worms involved with hormone replacement therapy. It's not as a set it and forget it type of thing, right? It's constant back and forth and monitoring, and adjustments needed to be made along the way, right? So it's, there's a lot of pros to it, but there are some cons to it as well, and certainly not something to be taken lightly. But again, thanks for sharing that, Dave, or David, I should say. We have Eric joining in. Welcome to the chat. Says good afternoon. Welcome. Glad to have you joining in. Thanks so much for your answer. Currently training for a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition, so I would say my main priority is BJJ right now, so I'll scale back on the gym sessions. Absolutely. Especially now you're in competition phase, that's going to be the main focus, leading up to this, because you're obviously being stronger is certainly going to help, but having better technique and being more smooth and fluid, and of course the stamina, is going to be much more advantageous than having a little bit of extra strength and oomph, right? I mean, we see this all the time, especially in a technical sport like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Someone who's a technician can certainly beat someone who's just big and strong. Now, sure, big and strong plays a role, don't get me wrong, especially if there's a big difference in size and strength. But I mean, technique and your stamina is going to be the biggest variable. So as you're leading up to your competition, I would put the main focus on your BJJ training, and still supplement it with weight training, but do so as that. Like, the main focus is on the martial arts, supplemented with some active recovery, mobility work, and things like that. What else we got there? Another follow-up. He says, also, sometimes I feel overtrained as I work shifts, and I'm a father of two sons. Okay, must be spell check or typo coming through there. Hard to balance it all. I hear you, my friend. I totally get it. Yeah. When you add in real life, work, family, and training, I mean, it's it's not easy. You got to balance that stuff out, right? And you can't burn the candle at both ends, right? That's the thing. I mean, sure, you get away with it for a little while, but it's not something you're going to get away with for long before eventually it's just going to, it's going to fall apart. So you got to manage. The recovery is the big thing here, especially as you're leading into your competition. Like, you don't want to be overtrained going into a competition, because that's something we often see as well. Athletes getting injured or overtrained before competition, and they end up performing their best leading up to the competition, and then by the time the actual competition comes around, they're subpar. They're not at 100%. Like, you want to tailor it so that you are hitting your peak for the competition, not hitting your peak a couple weeks before and then overtraining and feeling like you're burnt out by the time the competition rolls around. Right? It's a very delicate balance for sure. All right, who else we have? Sean is joining in. So 71 kilometers this week tracked. I was trying to share a screenshot. I need to change my diet, or what would you recommend for an endurance type of day? 71 kilometers for the week. I'm not sure what is it running? I'm assuming that must be what you mean. If it's running, that's quite significant for sure. Yeah, so kudos to you. I need to change my diet. What would you recommend for an endurance type of day? That's a challenging thing, because it depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. And when it comes to endurance training, what you eat during a high volume training day is going to vary from what you eat to a normal day. So you're going to have to learn to adjust your pre and intra workout nutrition accordingly, because when you're doing high volume training, you're going to be burning through a massive amount of calories. Like, to kind of put some numbers out there, I've had some days this summer where we did mega bike rides, and like my personal best bike ride so far was 220-ish kilometers. I can't remember. It was over 220. It was 9 hours of moving time. Not counting, not 9 hours total, 9 hours of moving time. The total time was actually longer than that. So it was a big day. And over the course of that day, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it was somewhere in the vicinity of like 5 or 6 thousand calories burned that day, or that ride, I should say, not the day, during the ride itself. It was like upwards of 6,000 calories burned during the ride and 9 hours of moving time. So, I mean, a massive day. And in order to accommodate that, like I had to be eating before and during and eating a lot to maintain the glycogen and just maintain the energy to complete that type of volume. Now, most people, if they're doing shorter workouts, like let's just say your typical cardio session is an hour or less, you don't need any special pre or intra workout nutrition because you're going to have enough glycogen in your system to get through it. But once those workouts go beyond the 2 hour mark, now intra workout and pre workout nutrition plays a big role. So that's something that's you really need to focus in on, and you actually have to train your stomach for this. Train it to eat and to exercise, right? That because most people don't do that, and it causes a lot of stomach upset and indigestion and things like that. So you have to train and then be selective of what foods you're eating, because the dietary choices you're going to have for endurance training is going to be different than the dietary choices you would have for regular healthy eating. And like you don't want high fiber foods when you're doing endurance training. You want low fiber sources of carbohydrates that are easy to digest and not going to make you want to be going to the loo. Right? You don't want to be out in the middle of a run or a ride or whatever you're doing, and like having to pull off inside the road and run in the woods and do a number two. Right? Like you want to minimize that. I mean, sometimes you still have to, right? Like if nature calls, nature calls, right? You got to do what you got to do, but you don't want to be eating food that's going to be causing that to happen. You want to eat foods that are going to be very easily absorbed, easily digested, not cause any stomach upset, and not cause you to need to to do a number two. Also, like when it comes to the nutrition and hydration, that's a big one. And like making sure you're getting enough electrolytes, make sure you're getting enough sodium and potassium and electrolytes in there, along with the food. So there's a lot to it. I do have a couple of videos where I go into a bit more detail about it, and I think we actually did a podcast where I talked a bit more about this as well. You just do a search, see if I can find it here quickly. If I go into podcasts, there was one, I believe I did it with Jeff. I might have. I'm trying to think now. Where is it? I'm scrolling through here. It's not that we've done that many. Well, it's actually how to combine strength training and endurance training together, but I don't know if we did a deep dive into the nutrition side of it. That could be certainly a topic for a future podcast for sure. But I'm just going to share that link with you. Just give me a moment here. I'll share this one. You can certainly check this one out. So I'll post the link to it in our video chat window there. Just give me a moment. This was a podcast I did talking about endurance, combining endurance training and strength training. I think we did touch on the nutrition side. Let's see if I can find that. And I did another video a while back about nutrition for endurance athletes or endurance training. But that is something I could certainly update, because I have certainly updated. That video is a couple of years old, and my approach has certainly changed since then. I've learned and implemented some better strategies. Can't find it off the top of my head. Shit, where's it to? Anyway, I'll look it up and post it in the chat later. So I can't find the link to it off the top of my head here. All right. But that's something that you'll definitely need to train your gut for, and something you have to practice within training. So like this is not something you want to do like last minute, the day of like a competition or the day of a big event or a big race or something like that. You would not want to try anything new. You want to have your nutrition strategies and your hydration strategies all practiced well in advance in your training leading up to it, because that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make is, they're probably doing short workouts training, and then like, let's say they're going to do a marathon or some big event like that, and then they start to do some weird different things, or they start eating things that they normally don't do, or start drinking things that they normally don't consume, and it may work or it could backfire. And you don't want to play that, like a Russian roulette game here at last minute, especially during an event that's significant. You want to practice in advance with your training rides or your training runs, so that you know how your body responds when the time counts. All right, who else we have joining in? We've got Dave's joining us. Says, Lee, if you had no gym available, what would you recommend to build decent legs, sprints or something else? Big fan, for many years from the UK. You can do a lot of body weight exercises that will build impressive legs. I mean, body weight squats, body weight lunges, step ups, jumps, jump squats. There's a lot of things that you can do. Um, Obviously you can do sprinting as well. Like that's another great form of leg training, running sprints. But I would focus on a lot of those body weight exercises that I mentioned. And you can make those harder. Like you can add weight to a lot of those exercises and make it a lot more challenging with a weighted backpack or just weights in general. Like it doesn't have to, I mean, first off, you can probably get some dumbbells or some weights pretty easily and pretty simple. I mean, they're readily available. Like every sporting goods store, every department store, go on Facebook Marketplace, or even just ask around, and someone probably have an old set of weights that they could give you. So, like, even if you're in a crappy situation, you could acquire some exercise equipment if you really tried. Right, most people could. So you could add some resistance there. But those exercises that I mentioned, squats, lunges, step ups, and other ones that you can do, uh, body weight stability ball leg curls is another one that I've done. Like I actually have a workout playlist. It's a home gym dumbbell only workout playlist. And there's a full leg workout in there using just dumbbell exercises that you can do at home. So you could get yourself a set of dumbbells. And I mean, if worst case scenario, you can't get dumbbells, then you could get like a weighted backpack or sandbags or something along those lines to make it work. Like you can make it work if you get creative. And it's amazing how effective some of these, non-machine exercises can be. Sometimes they're actually a lot harder than traditional gym exercises. Like if you see someone who's good at doing single leg pistol squats, they're going to have freaking strong legs. And that's a lot harder than, doing regular barbell squats. I mean, I know guys who can barbell squat, 3+ plates aside for reps, can't do a pistol squat. Right. I mean, like, so you can use body weight alone and build impressive strength. Right. It doesn't always have to be, gym machines and free weights and stuff like that. It's like you can get creative. I mean, just start searching for calisthenics videos on YouTube. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of calisthenics workouts, and you just kind of open your eyes to like, wow, there's so much that you can do without having to go to the gym. Now, with that being said, do I still recommend the gym? Absolutely. But if you're like you mentioned, if I had no gym available, what would I do? That's what I would do. All right, what else we got there? Danny's joining in saying, what are your thoughts on taking the same volume of a 3-day week workout and do it 6 times a day instead to have even shorter workouts if you're tight on time daily? All right, let me read that again. Take the same volume of a 3-day per week workout and do it 6 times a day if you're to have even shorter workout. I think you must mean 6 times a week. So you take a 3-day per week workout, and instead of doing it 3 days a week, you do 6 half workouts a week. So like workout one, you break that into, like, each workout, you break it into 2. So you have 6 workouts over the week. I think you must mean that instead, because 6 times a day, like, there's nothing short about doing 6 workouts a day. Like that. I ain't doing 6 workouts a day. Screw that. Right? Hey, 1 workout a day is a lot. 2 workouts a day is pushing the extremes for most people. 6, I mean, give me a break. So I think you mean per week. Yeah, you could do that. You could take it and break it up into mini workouts, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have to look at the total volume done over the course of the week or over the course of the long term. Like, it doesn't matter, right? If that fits your schedule better, and it might actually even be better in terms of recovery as well. Bottom line, try it, see how it works, see how you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, I mean, stick with it. If you don't, you can always go back to the 3-day program that you had before. But personally, I don't think there's going to be any issue with that. And I know some guys will even break it up into 2-a-days. Like sometimes, for example, let's just say you're training a couple body parts per day, maybe like you're doing chest and back or whatever. You could train one muscle group in the morning, one muscle group in the evening. Like I know guys who have the time to do it very often like to do the double days where they're, instead of doing one big workout, they do 2 shorter workouts, right? That actually allows for more. Some people find it easier in terms of scheduling, and they find that they're able to focus more, just really go in there, hit that short workout hard, get it done, and have more energy and focus that way. So, it's not right or wrong. It's just, what do you prefer? What do you enjoy? All right. Gotcha. What else we got there? Matthew, oops, there we go. Matthew says he's currently doing a full body workout 3 days per week. Good stuff. That's usually my typical go-to. And a lot of the coaching students that I'm working with, we typically do that. Now, it all depends on the individual and their preferences. But personally, I am a big fan of total body workouts or full body workouts, whatever you want to call them. That usually works well for me in my schedule. Well, good for you. We have Louis joining in. Welcome. He says, what's your take on one body part per day training? If you enjoy it, go for it. The only downside to it is you have to be very consistent, because if you're only training one major muscle group per day, the typical bro split, if you miss workouts or you're not 100% consistent, you could end up having large gaps between muscle groups. So, like, from a practical point of view, most people, the biggest challenge they have is, I don't have enough time to work out, and they're on and off again with their workouts. Like that's the real world's challenge. And I know there's a few unicorns out there who live in the gym and they don't never miss a workout. I mean, but they're the exception, not the rule. The average person is on and off again, right? They may hit the gym consistently for a couple weeks, and then they take a couple weeks off, and then they're back at it for a few days, and then a few days off, and they're on and off, on and off, on and off. So they're not really consistent with anything over the long term. If you're going to do a body part split like that, you have to be consistent in order to make it work. This isn't something, for the on and offers. You're never going to make any consistent progress that way. If for those people who are struggling to make it to the gym, that's where doing full body workouts are more advantageous, because okay, like even if you only get to the gym once a week, well, at least you're still doing a little bit for all your major muscle groups. You're still hitting your total body. Whereas if you're doing one body part per day and you only make it to the gym once per week, you hit one muscle group, right? And it's going to take you a month to hit all your major muscle groups, right? So if you're going to do that, you need to be spot on consistent, right? So this is the one for the people who are in the gym like every day, day in, day out, rain or shine, never miss a workout. Yeah, you could make it work, right? If that's you in your situation. But if you're less than 100% consistent, I would not recommend it. We have Corbin joining in. How's it going, Corbin? He's a regular to our chats and to the Facebook group. We have Matthew saying, I have a birthday dinner to go to tonight. To not break my diet, I'm going to order a plate of chicken and veggies. I'll skip the rice and just have a small slice of cake for dessert. Kudos to you for that. You know what? You can make that stuff work. I know some people think that's extreme, but if you're serious and you're committed to your goals and you actually want to stay on track, I totally get it. I've certainly done that myself, and that's the thing. Like, how do you make it work? How do you find that balance where you can be comfortable, still go out and enjoy a meal and a dinner with your friends and family or whoever you're going out with, and make it work, right? Like that's the secret with this. But kudos to you. Thanks for sharing. And happy birthday. Happy birthday. I'm assuming is the birthday today. If it is, happy birthday to you. Because I know not everybody celebrates on their exact birthday. Sometimes it's you put it off to the weekend or to the time when you can get everybody together for the celebration. But happy birthday to you nonetheless. Um, Lola Blue says, should I start with strength training before I do a bulk and a cut? Strength training is part of a bulk or a cut or anything. Strength training should be part of your program regardless. I mean, especially if you're trying to improve your body composition, which I'm assuming you are. If you're thinking of bulking, cutting, you probably want to build muscle and lose body fat. Strength training is an important part of that. So it's not something that you start. Absolutely, that's step one. Start with the workouts. Like even before the diet, I would recommend getting your workouts in order. Like I want to just talk on that for a moment. A lot of people say, like, what's more important? Is it the diet? Is it the exercise and everything else? And the truth is, it's all important. Like, I mean, we can argue back and forth, like, okay, nutrition is more important than weight training, or abs are made in the kitchen. Like, you hear all these phrases and sayings and stuff like that. But the reality is, if you don't have your training dialed in, you don't have your nutrition dialed in, and you don't have your lifestyle habits dialed in, you're not going to optimize your progress. You need it all. I consider it like the legs of a tripod, right? You have your training, you have your nutrition, and then you have your lifestyle, right? And what I mean by lifestyle, that could be sleep schedule, work schedule, stress management, alcohol consumption or lack thereof, like all the other things that come into play, right? Lifestyle in general, because even if you have a great training program and a great nutrition plan, but your sleep sucks and you're stressed out at work and yada yada yada. I mean, like that could sabotage. You could self-sabotage from that alone. So all these elements, the training, the nutrition, and the lifestyle are like the legs of a tripod. And if you don't have three legs on a tripod, guess what happens? Like you take one away, the whole thing comes toppling over. Same thing's going to apply with your whole fitness routine. If you don't have it all in place, the training, the nutrition, and the lifestyle, it's going to come toppling over. But if someone's going to say, like, where do I start? Start with the strength training, start with the gym, get some exercise there first. Because the reason why I say that is you're going to eat anyway. All right. Like, regardless of who you are or what, like, you got to eat. I mean, granted, it's probably not the optimal food choices and there's probably a lot of room for improvement, but you're going to eat. But you don't have to exercise, right? So if you're not currently exercising, start with that, right? And what I find is that very often will lay the foundation and then give people motivation to want to follow up those workouts with better eating habits, with better sleep habits. It kind of like it's the first domino, if you will. If you knock that one over, it's going to help to spur on and knock over the other ones. Whereas if I just say, oh, I want you to focus on getting better sleep, is that going to really motivate you to want to work out because you're sleeping better? I mean, it may. I mean, it may have an impact, but it's not really a big motivator for a lot of people. Or if I say, make sure you're eating healthy food, is that really going to motivate you to go to the gym? Maybe not. But if you go to the gym, is that going to motivate you to want to eat better? Because you're going to say, well, I just put all that work in the gym. Do I want to sabotage it all now by eating like crap? Or do I want to nourish my body with good quality food choices? I just put on that time and effort into the gym. I want to optimize that work and effort I put into the gym by fueling my body properly. So it's going to help to motivate you to eat better. And then, of course, when you're exercising, it's also going to motivate you to want to sleep better because you say, well, you know what? If I'm tired tomorrow, and if I don't get a good night's sleep tonight, I'm going to have a shitty workout tomorrow. So the workout is going to help to motivate you to do these other things. It's going to help motivate you to eat better. It's going to help motivate you to sleep better and take care of all those other elements of your lifestyle. So that's why I always recommend start with the workouts first. So, I mean, to answer your question, should you start with strength training? If you're not going to the gym now, you're not doing strength training now, start with that. That's step one, right? That's the first step to fitness right there. And then once that's done and you're comfortable with that, then we can gradually start to improve your eating habits. We can improve your lifestyle habits and all that. But take it one step at a time. And the first step should be the strength training and the cardio. And as far as priority, I want to touch on this too. If your main goal is improving your body composition, like building a physique that looks like you work out, strength training is more important than cardio. Now, I'm saying this as someone who loves cardio and competes in cardio sports. Like I do cycling races. So, I mean, I love cardio. I love the sport, and I know it's good for heart health and cardiovascular fitness and all that. But as far as body composition, it's not as powerful as strength training. Like if you want to build a physique that looks like you work out, that has that lean athletic look, strength training is the key. You need to have that there. That's number one. And I've even seen this in my own physique. Like when I prioritize strength training, I look more muscular. I look better in terms of, physique, aesthetic wise. It looks better. I do cardio because I love the sport of it. I love getting outside on the bike, and I love the adventure of it, and I love the challenge of it, and I love the competition side of it. But it's not the best from a body composition point of view. I mean, it's great for burning fat and calories, so it can help you to lose weight. But in order to build that lean, muscular, athletic looking physique, you need to get the strength training in there. So if that is your goal, to look better, strength training has to be done by both men and women. That is top priority. And if you look at anybody you admire, anybody's physique who you admire, and say like, hey, I would like to look like them, whether it's an athlete or a celebrity or influencer or someone you admire, I can bet you dollars to donuts that they're doing strength training, right? It's part of their program in there somewhere. All right, who else we got there? Let's see, guys. We got Corbin saying a man and his wife said they can't lose because of their thyroids, and there's daughter too. All right. I don't know what the man and the wife situation is, but if they're concerned about their thyroid or hormones in general, that's something they should get checked out. Like you can go to your doctor, you can get some tests on, and if that is an issue, then you can get put on thyroid medication. I mean, I know people personally. I have family members who have low thyroid who are on thyroid medication to correct that. So I mean, that's something that's a part of hormone replacement therapy, right? Because it's thyroid hormone. Certainly could be taken care of through a doctor or through a hormone replacement therapy clinic. Nice. What else? We have Valley Deep. Hi Lee. What is, in your opinion, the minimum age I should try and convince my daughter to give weightlifting a chance? I mentioned some things to her and she seems interested. She is 12. Now, simple as that. There is no minimum age. Like well, technically there is. Like you wouldn't have an infant who can't stand up and walk, right? Try to lift weights. But if they're old enough to partake in just regular activities and sports, like if they're old enough to ride a bike, if they're old enough to play on the playground, if they're old enough to kick a soccer ball around, like if they're old enough to do gym class at school, they're old enough to go to the gym and lift weights. Obviously, they're going to be doing it at their own level. They're going to be doing it with some supervision. Now, the thing you have to factor in there too is, all right, are you training her at a home gym? I mean, if it is, okay, you're in total control there. But if you're training at a public gym, they may have minimum ages for insurance purposes and stuff like that. Like that depends on the facility that you're at and yada yada yada. Like some gyms are very open. Like as long as they have adult supervision and the adults sign a waiver, you're good to go. Other ones might say, hey, you got to be 16 years old before you're allowed to work out in this gym for insurance purposes. It all depends on whatever situation they have. Like, because I remember back when I was working out, there was I started training at 12 years old with my father in our own home gym, did that for several years. And I remember a local gym opened up in our community, and I was so excited because I had a few years of working out under my belt. And right, I wanted to go join this gym. I think I was 15 years old at the time, and I said, "Oh, this is awesome, right? I'm able to get out of the house now, and I'm going to train at a real gym." And I was so excited, and we went up there, and they took us on the tour of the gym and everything else. I said, "Absolutely, yes, sign me up." And then when we went to do the paperwork to sign up, I said, "Okay, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 15." And they said, "You got to be 16 in order to join the gym." And I was like, "Oh," I was such a letdown. So obviously I didn't join the gym, right? So I still had to work out at home. But I know like the gym that I train at now, as long as kids are supervised by adults, like they're allowed to work out at a younger age. I've even had my son in there. I mean, my son is 8 years old. I mean, I've got videos up on, videos on YouTube and I'm on Facebook of us in the gym working out. So as long as they're doing so under supervision, lifting within their means and taught to lift with proper form, it is very safe. And strength training in general is one of the safest activities you can do. Like I know there's a lot of myths and misconceptions. People say, oh, it's dangerous. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to stunt your growth. You're going to F your body up or whatever. Like, you're in total control of what you do in the gym. And 99% of the injuries that happen in the gym, except for a few freak accidents, but 99% of the time, if somebody gets hurt in the gym, it's their own damn fault because they were lifting way too heavy or lifting beyond their means. Like, you are in control. Like, you decide how heavy you lift. You decide when to stop the set. Like, this whole idea of pushing yourself and no pain, no gain, and repping out to failure and going to failure and beyond, and like, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, you're allowed to do an easy workout. You do not have to kill yourself in the gym. You're allowed to rack the weight when the weight is starting, like, oh, this is becoming heavy. I think I should put this weight down. It is becoming too heavy. Like, you're allowed to do that. You don't have to grunt and grind to the point where you like cannot move the weight anymore. Right? So you're in total control. And the way that I like to do it from a practical point of view is, once your form starts to break down with an exercise, that's it. You've stimulated the muscle. Once your form starts to break down, rack the weight, stop the set. It's not to the point where you can no longer move the weight at all. And of course, when you're working with young people and beginners and stuff, that level is going to be even quicker. Like, you don't have them training to failure. You don't have them pushing the limits. I mean, like, they can go through the motions with like baby weights, literally, and just learn the technique, learn the mechanics of the exercise, and then progress gradually. And it's, when done so like that, it is very safe, right? I mean, because again, you're in total control. Whereas if we go play sports, like we participate in martial arts, or we participate in football or soccer or baseball or whatever, like, you're not in control of what happens. Like, if you're out on the football field and someone tackles you, you're not in control. Or if you're in doing karate lessons and someone kicks you or punches you, or like, you're not in control. Like, the risk of injury is way the hell higher in those sports. Whereas in weight training, you're in total control of what happens. You're in control of what you do. Right? So start now. That's the simple answer. It's a very safe activity. And to put things in perspective as well, to really drive this home, think of gymnastics. Like, gymnastics is like, people start their kids in gymnastics at 2. Like, I remember we started taking Harvey to the local gymnastics club then. Now, granted, the kids are kind of just playing around on the mats, and some of them are like trying to do some little tumbles or jumping on the trampoline or hanging from the rings or whatever. I mean, it wasn't some big formal structured program, but they would start the process at 2, right? That's how young. And like, they're lifting their body weight. When you're in the gym with kids, a lot of the exercises are nowhere near as heavy as their body weight. Like, if they're doing dumbbell curls or rows or some machine exercises, like, they could be lifting 10 pounds, right? Whereas when they're doing gymnastics, every exercise they do is a body weight exercise. So, I mean, if it's safe to have kids lifting their body weight as young as 2 years old, it's safe for them to go into the gym and lift weights that are way less than their body weight at an older age. So, it's quite safe, bottom line. What else we got there? Who else is joining in? Neil is joining us, regular to the chat. I gotta say, Neil, you're consistent. I don't think there's too many chats that I do. I don't see your name pop up into the in the question column there. Good for you, my friend. I respect the consistency. He says, I want to improve the feeling of my back when I do rows on my weaker side. What would be your best advice? Single limb exercises. There's a lot of different single limb exercises you can do for your back, and not just for rows, but I would recommend incorporating some single limb exercises for all your back. So pull downs, rows, and different row variations. So there's so many different variations. And also using machines that are independent, that have independent moving left and right sides, such as like hammer strength, for example, where like each side has its own independent weight. So you get equal split of resistance from left to right. That's what I would recommend over exercises like barbell exercises or machines where it's just one handle that you're moving, because in those situations, you can overcompensate with your stronger side. Even though you're incorporating left and right sides, if you have an imbalance, you might be subconsciously lifting like 60% with your stronger side and 40% with your weaker side, and that just creates a bigger imbalance. So anytime you have an imbalance, the best thing that you can do is start incorporating single limb exercises. And I actually have a full playlist covering single limb workouts that I would recommend you check out. If you just do a search for Lee Hayward single limb workout, you should find it. Go to YouTube and search for that. I'm going to see if I can find it myself. Single limb workout. Here it is. So it's a full playlist, but the one that you would be interested in, it's actually a chest and back workout. I'm going to share the link with you here so you can go check that out and show some different exercises that you can incorporate using single limbs. And, that could even apply for, I would even recommend following that entire program for a while, because it's not just the back. Like, okay, you're finding it in the back. That's where you're noticing it. But that will come into play, like even when you're doing arm exercises and shoulder exercises and things like that, because the body works in unison. And if you have an imbalance in one area, it's probably carrying over to other areas as well. But you're just more aware of it, I guess, in the back. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually like do maybe a 6-week training phase, just prioritizing single limb workouts. So here, I just typed that into the chat window. You can go check that out. This is something that I go back to myself from time to time as well. I find it's there's no harm in doing that, because everybody, virtually everyone, has an imbalance. Like if you're right-handed, chances are you're going to be stronger on your right side, or vice versa. If you're left-handed, chances are you're going to be stronger on your left side. Now, sometimes it's weird. I've seen it before where people are stronger in one side and more developed in the other. I don't know how that works or why that works, but it's weird. But usually we do have some imbalances, right, between the left and right sides. And it's not just in the upper body, it's also with the legs. Like you have a dominant leg. If you've ever skateboarded or snowboarded or surfed, you know this. Like, what is your lead leg? Are you regular foot or are you goofy foot? That, whatever your lead foot is generally your dominant one. That's where you're probably going to be stronger. So we all have these imbalances, and it's rare that you'll ever fully correct them. Like you'll always probably be stronger in your dominant side, but by incorporating single limb training, you can minimize the imbalance and help to create more symmetry between the left and right sides, right? But it'll probably never be perfect. And to really, kind of prove my point here, you look at some of the top bodybuilders of all time, like even going back like to Arnold Schwarzenegger, to some of the modern day guys like Jay Cutler, even some of the current pros and current Mr. Olympia competitors and that now. If you look at their physiques, most of them have some sort of imbalance between the left and right sides. Like very few are perfectly symmetrical. Like Arnold had a glaring imbalance. Like his right arm was way more developed than his left arm. Jay Cutler had some glaring imbalances. Like he had, like you could see, I believe in his case, it was the left side was bigger than the right. And not just in the arm, but like his quads too. You could, if you look at like a front shots, like one quad noticeably bigger than the other quad. And I mean, if you're looking at guys like that, Mr. Olympia, the best of the best, the elite of the elite, right? The cream of the crop, who've trained for years, have elite genetics, have done every performance enhancing substance that they needed to in order to become the best of the best. If those guys still have imbalances, then mere mortals like you and I are definitely going to have some imbalances. So just realize that it's normal. You're not alone or weird because of this. Like everybody has them. It's just most people are not aware of it because they're not consciously focusing on their body, right? They're not exercising. They're not in the gym looking at themselves in the mirror or whatever, measuring and tracking to see. Most people just don't give a shit, right? So they don't know that they have imbalances. But once you become aware of this, then it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, you'll always have imbalances, but you can do the best you can to minimize them. All right, what else we got there? Let's see. We got a few more questions coming through. We have Conscious Aether saying there are those who swear that machines are completely useless. For example, all exercises that involve the Smith machine. What are your thoughts? I think those people are idiots because they don't understand the greater scheme of what's going on, right? I've covered this before, but there are exercises that are impossible to do with body weight and free weights and body weight exercises that are only able to be done through machines. Like I'll give you a prime example. A lat pull down or a tricep push down or a leg curl, like those are so much easier to do with machines compared to free weights. What other ones? Let's just see. I mean, like there's so many different variations. Um, yeah, bottom line, like, and the Smith machine you mentioned there as well. Like, I mean, I think the Smith machine serves a purpose. You know, I don't like it for a lot of exercises, and if I can do a barbell variation, I will. But in some situations, it's advantageous, especially if somebody has balance issues and is learning how to do an exercise. Like, if someone is learning how to squat, the Smith machine could be a very useful tool, or some sort of hack squat machine or a pendulum squat machine, which are very common in gyms these days. Those are useful tools because they take the balance element out of it. So you can focus on actually squatting, hitting proper depth, and lifting the weight and working the muscles without fear of toppling over backwards or forwards. So the Smith machine is advantageous in those situations, or any other of the squat machines. But once somebody has a base level of fitness, okay, you can carry that over to free weight exercises. Also, when you're looking at people who are new to weight training, it's so much easier to get started using a machine than it is to use free weights. And free weights are harder and more intimidating for a lot of people to get started with, especially if anybody has injuries or mobility issues. You know, having them jump into free weights may not be the best solution. So when I'm working with anybody new, like when I'm training people one-on-one at the gym, especially someone who's either never worked out before or is coming back to the gym after a layoff or coming back after injuries or anything like that, we always start with machines first because it's safer and the machine balances and stabilizes the weight for you. You just literally have to push or pull against resistance. So the risk of injury is very low and it allows you to still stimulate the muscle. And then once you're comfortable with the machine variation, okay, yeah, we can probably incorporate some free weight variations in there as well. I mean, there's advantages to both. I mean, with the free weights, okay, you're going to engage more stabilizer muscles, more balance and coordination and things like that, which is advantageous for an advanced lifter, but it's not helpful for someone who's brand new because that balance and stabilization and coordination is actually holding them back from working and stimulating the muscle to the maximum ability. So I hate it when people have this all or nothing, black or white, good or bad. Like there's a lot of shades of gray in there, and it all depends on the situation, right? Like there's no such thing as, you know, this is a good exercise or this is a bad exercise or, you know, never do this or whatever. It depends, right? It depends. And we can make that argument for virtually everything, right? You know, it depends on the situation, depends on the individual. Yeah. But again, when you hear stuff like that, like all people who have these all or nothing mentalities, like you see the same thing in nutrition. Like some people say, "Oh, never eat carbs. Carbs are bad." Well, if you're an endurance athlete trying to run a marathon, good luck doing that with no carbs in your system, right? It ain't going to happen. It depends, right? It depends on the situation, right? So again, when you hear somebody who has these, you know, extreme views, I just take it with a grain of salt. Like I usually don't even get into the conversation. I just, okay, yeah, good for you, bro. You know, and then just go on about my business. Like I couldn't be bothered to go into an argument with someone over crap like that. That's another thing you'll find too. In generally in the fitness world, people who know the most and are the most knowledgeable and everything else, they're not going to be in on forums or comment sections or, you know, social media and having these endless debates in the comment section because they got better shit to do than waste their time debating over stuff like this. Right? You'll never see me in a comment section unless, you know, somebody's commenting on my own content. That's different. I'll respond to that, but I'm not going to go in and comment on somebody else's post and try and convince them that they're right or wrong or whatever. I couldn't care less. All right, what else we got there? Have you had any embarrassing gym moments? I think we all have at some point or another. Yeah, not too many in recent years, or not too many that I really cared about. But I remember one that was quite embarrassing when I was doing squats at the this was a few years back now, and the jogging pants or the track pants that I were wearing had seen better days. And after a couple sets of squats, I literally ripped the ass out of my pants. And so, I mean, everybody could just see my underwear and, right through the ass crack. Thankfully, I had a change of pants in my gym bag. I mean, it was, so I put those on instead. So I think I ended up doing the second half of my workout in jeans because I ripped the ass out of my my gym jogging pants that I had at the gym. So that was a bit embarrassing. Um, Farting at the gym, that happens to the best of us at sometimes, right? So, especially if you're really grunting and you're exerting yourself and all of a sudden you let out a big ripper, that can be a bit embarrassing, depending on who's around, right? Uh, what else? Those are probably the big ones. I haven't had any major ones in recent years that I can think of, but I've seen some people do some pretty stupid things, like one situation I remember seeing, like, people having the barbell loaded up, like let's say they had 3 plates on one side or 3 plates per side, and then they start taking all the plates off one side, and then the barbell flips off the rack and goes flying across the gym. Or I've seen some crazy stuff like that happen. I've never had it happen to me before because I've kind of been smart enough to counterbalance it. I always leave at least 1 plate per side. Yeah, but yeah, I think we've all had some embarrassing moments, but those are a couple of mine for sure. What else we got there? I'm going to get ready to clue it up. We're already at the past the hour mark, but I'm going to just clue this up here now. What else? Man from Earth. I hope we're all from Earth. Is there anybody joining the video chat who isn't from Earth? If you are, I'd be interesting to see. And it says, I'm 46, was sprinting, and my chest strap showed that my heart rate was above maximum. I held back because I read it may be dangerous, but I felt, well, I think we should not put too much faith in those. You don't know what your maximum heart rate is until you max it out. I mean, like, this whole thing of your heart rate is 220 minus your age, that's BS. My heart rate has gone way higher than that. Um, the highest recorded heart rate that I've ever seen, I think for me personally, was like 210. And that was during a race. Like, that's when I was pushing max effort. I've seen my heart rate go up to as high as 210. Now, if I'm looking at my quote unquote max 220 minus my age, there's no way. But I know, okay. And I've had my heart rate go over 200 on several occasions during races when I was pushing max effort, like, like just emptying the tank. So I like, when I track my heart rate now, and like in my Garmin and stuff like that, I have it set so like 200 I put as my maximum heart rate, because I've known I've hit 200 several times, and I base my heart rate percentages off a heart rate of 200. If you're just going by the whole 220 minus your age thing, that's going to be underestimating it, and your potential for heart rate is higher than that. Now, with that being said, sometimes you will get some blips on the heart rate monitor that could be like totally off the scale. Like that does happen from time to time. And if it's like the odd, like, like when you're working really hard, your heart rate is at a certain level, and then all of a sudden it just spikes off the charts, then yeah, okay, you take that with a grain of salt. That's probably just a glitch with the machine. But if you've consistently see it go higher, and it's in line with your perceived exertion, so like, you're working hard and the heart rate is elevated, then it's in the ballpark accurate. I mean, it may not be perfectly accurate, but it's in the ballpark, right? And that's the case with me. Like, I've seen my heart rate go 200 multiple times during max effort races. So I safely assume, okay, my maximum heart rate is 200, and that's what I'll log it as. Now, before I ever did that, I was going by the whole 220 minus your age, until I realized during some hard sessions, like, wow, I can actually go beyond my so-called max heart rate. So I guess my theoretical max isn't really my max. It can go higher than that. So that's what you got to learn that stuff, and just be aware of it. But yeah, so the big thing is how do you feel? That's the it's nice to have these numbers like your heart rate and your power output and all these kind of things. Like it's nice to have those numbers, but how do those numbers correlate to your perceived exertion? Because if you're seeing crazy high numbers and you're not working really hard, or vice versa, you're working really hard and you're seeing crazy low numbers, there might be some error with the tracking, so you take it with a grain of salt. But if it's correlating with your perceived exertion, then it's probably pretty accurate. And that's why I like to use all the different methods and not just focusing on one specific metric. So that's one thing I like about cycling is like I got a power meter on my bike so I can track the power output. I wear a heart rate monitor. And then, of course, you can just go by your perceived exertion and then correlate all those things together and say, okay, when I feel like I'm working hard, are the power numbers and the heart rate numbers matching the effort that I'm putting in? And then vice versa, when I'm doing a low intensity workout or doing different intervals and stuff, is the exertion, the heart rate, and the power matching what I'm feeling? Is it all lining up in sync? And if it is, you can kind of put more faith into those numbers. But the biggest one that I would put the biggest the most faith in is your perceived exertion, right? You know when you're working hard, and you know when you're taking it easy. That's more important than the numbers on your gadgets. All right, what else we got there? John is joining in. He says, "Can I work an upper muscle group like chest and legs in the same workout session? I heard it's not good. What are your thoughts?" Absolutely. You can do a total body workout. I mean, that's what I do. So when I go to the gym, I work all my major muscle groups. There's no there's no rhyme or reason or saying, oh, it's not good or don't do that. You can do it, right? I mean, look at real world strength or real world activity. Like, where in nature or where in just good old fashioned hard work are you only working your chest and nothing else? Or where are you only working your legs and nothing else? Like, it doesn't exist in nature. So there's nothing wrong with going into the gym and training more than one muscle group, right? If you look at like a powerlifting competition, they're squatting, benching, and deadlifting. Like, that's every major muscle group coming into play. If you go to a weightlifting, they're doing the overhead lifts, the snatch, and the clean and jerk. That's every major muscle group coming into play. If you look at strongman competitors or CrossFit athletes or any of these guys, they're working every major muscle group. Like, they're not just, hey guys, we're only going to focus on our chest today, or we're only going to focus on our biceps today, or we're only going to focus on our hamstrings today. No, they're hitting everything. So you can hit everything in the gym, or more than one muscle group in the gym. Right. All right. I think that pretty much clues it up. Or wait, no, there's a couple more there. All right. uh, Kareem says, enough of the exercise talk. Give us the secret sauce to your public speaking skills. Practice. The secret sauce to public speaking, I actually did Toastmasters. That's how this all got started. If you're not familiar with Toastmasters, go on Google after this video chat and type in Toastmasters. That is literally a public speaking group that's worldwide where you can go and practice public speaking. And that's how this all started. I started back in Toastmasters in 2008 because I wanted to get better at speaking on video for YouTube videos like this. And that's where it all started from. So I had training and coaching with public speaking. I mean, I know I could probably use some more training and coaching with it, but I have went to Toastmasters for over 10 years, but in recent years, like since Harvey was born and I had so much on my plate, like I had to kind of, okay, I only have so many hours in the day, so much time to dedicate to different things. And Toastmasters was one of those things that I'm good enough. I'm going to let that go. But I learned so much from that, and I still stay in touch with the people who run the club and stuff. But that's the key. If you want to get better at public speaking, Toastmasters, hands down, is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. So just do a Google search afterwards and see if you can find a club in your local area. And one last question, then we're going to clue it up. This is from Louis saying, so if I could choose to train one body part per day, how many exercises, how many sets per session do you recommend? Do you have any videos on this type of training? again, that's going to depend on your fitness level, your work capacity, your experience, yada yada yada. Like I don't like to give cookie cutter recommendations where like everybody should do this, because I don't know what your stamina is. It's like me, someone saying, "Hey, I want to run. How many miles should I run, and how fast should I run?" Like, you might not even be able to run 1 mile at this stage, right? You might not be able to walk a mile at this stage. Like, I don't know where you are in terms of your fitness level. So to try and give recommendations, that's where having a coach, someone who can customize a program to you specifically, your situation, analyze what it is you're trying to train for and all that, and do a deep dive. And that's what I do personally. Like when I'm working with guys in the Muscle After 40 program, like we do an in-depth onboarding session where we have you know an in-depth coaching call where we do a deep dive into like, what are you trying to achieve, like what are you currently doing now, where are you at right now, and how can we take you to where you want to go. And then we map out a step-by-step action plan to get there. And it's not just a cookie cutter, everybody does the same thing type of approach, because again, we're all at different levels. I mean, if I'm trying to help someone who's an experienced athlete take things to the next level, that's totally different than someone who hasn't worked out for the last 20 years and is overweight and out of shape, right? It depends on where you're starting from. So I can't really give recommendations on how many days you should train or how many exercises you should do or whatever. And this, if for someone who's brand new, I wouldn't recommend one body part per day. I would have them starting off with a total body workout to just work the body in sync. So, if you want to discuss this and then kind of like we can do a deep dive and see like where you're at, where you want to go, and how do we get there, feel free to reach out to me. I mean, you can message me. I mean, my contact information is down below. And you can even book in for a strategy session coaching call with me as well. Like that's something I offer if you want to do a deep dive. We can break it down, because I would feel more comfortable doing that and giving honest recommendations versus just me spewing out stuff that I don't know if it's going to be helpful or not. Right. Right. It's so everyone's at different levels. That's all I can say there. Right. So we can't really give generic advice, because what might be ideal for you could be overkill for someone else, or vice versa. All right, folks, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. I always enjoy doing our Friday video chats, and glad to see you joining in as well. And in the meantime, if you haven't already done so, make sure to follow us over on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group. If you haven't done so, you can search for Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding. This is a great way to keep that conversation going throughout the week. And if you do have any suggestions for future podcast episodes, I am open to it. Please reach out to me, email me any specific topics or suggestions that you would like to see covered in future episodes, or any special guests that you would like to see featured on. Feel free to let me know. I'm open to suggestions because I do this content for you. So let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll do my best to provide it for you. All right. Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Over and out.